Hi, if you're here wondering why the thumbnail is titled Triumph versus Tragedy and the tragedy is over the drifters, I'm going to explain that in a few minutes, but I want to focus on the Afroman case first. And if you're wondering why this is being featured on an education channel, that's because it's important to understand that while reading, writing, and arithmetic and civics and all of those things, they're important to learn in a closed, focused setting, whether it's a brick and mortar public school, private school, or homeschooling. It's important to learn those lessons, but there are a lot of lessons in life that take place way outside of the classroom, and they can help a young person's growth and development. And yes, it is absolutely possible to learn from other people's mistakes. And in this case, it was the Adams County Sheriff's Department. And just speaking about learning, here's something. The Adams County Sheriff Department that sued Afroman is in the state of Ohio, not Pennsylvania. There is an Adams County Sheriff's Department in Pennsylvania, which evidently has been flooded with emails and phone calls regarding this case. This is where the internet often gets it wrong. It was Ohio, not Pennsylvania. Now, the situation where they raided Afroman's home and did extensive damage to it, and according to him, also skimmed some money out of the cash that he had on hand. That, for the most part, was a local story. People in his town and the surrounding areas knew about it, but most people were completely oblivious to it, and they would have stayed that way if they hadn't gone and sued him. It was the lawsuit that brought it to my attention and to the attention of a lot of other people. Now, I know early in his career, he was nominated for a Grammy Award. If I ever heard his name, it certainly didn't stick with me. It wasn't until I read in a news article about the case that I knew anything about him being nominated for a Grammy Award. All of this would have flown right under the radar if the Adams County, Ohio Sheriff's Department had just left it alone. But because he did, which one attorney who reviewed the case, the trial, so aptly put it, he did what was in his right to do. He did it nonviolently, and he did it with a sense of humor, which apparently the Adams County Sheriff's Department does not have. So they went after him and they lost on every single count because it was mostly parody. He used the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and for the Lemon Pound Cake, which I think is the one that got the most attention, he used the Drifters Under the Boardwalk and changed it to suit the purposes of his video. And yes, I'm going to get to the Drifters and talk about Under the Boardwalk and why it's a tragedy. So it was a total triumph for Afroman. He won the case outright. The Adams County Sheriff's Department, if you saw any of their testimony, they looked, they didn't come off looking very good. They really did not make themselves look good. And again, what would have been a relatively contained situation ended up blowing up nationally and internationally. So a lot they were upset that people were making fun of them in their town and surrounding communities. Well, now they may have a problem going on vacation in another state or to some other country because their faces are now known. So it was a complete and total triumph for Afroman because not only did he win the case, but he made a lot more money. Those videos got a lot more traction, a lot more views, and as a result, generated more income for him than he possibly could have imagined. He did it initially to try to raise funds to repair the damage done to his house. He can probably buy another house now because of all of the attention that the case received, that was filed by the Adams County Sheriff's Department. So now let's talk about the drifters. If you're a subscriber to this channel, you may have seen the short video I put up with this image. It was very short, and I asked viewers to identify the three things that were wrong with it. If you look at it, it reads Rudy Lewis. That is not a picture of Rudy Lewis. That is a picture of Clyde McPhatter, the singer who was responsible, the original lead singer of the Drifters. The Drifters were formed as a backup group for Clyde McPhatter, who had left Billy Ward and the Dominoes. He was only with the Drifters for about a year and a half, and then he left, and they got another lead singer. Probably the one you know the most is Benny King. He stayed with them until about 1963, and then in 1964, Rudy Lewis became the lead singer for them. Although they didn't have one single lead singer at that time. They switched in and out. Now, Under the Boardwalk, which Afroman used for his Lemon Pound Cake song, was a big hit for the Drifters. And when I initially heard it, I loved the song, but there was always something about it that bothered me. It took me a while to put my finger on it. And after I did, what bothered me about it was that although it's a summer love story about young people, probably teenagers, maybe early 20s, romping on the beach and having fun under the sun, but out of other people's eye, it seemed to me that that song should have been a little bit bouncier, a little bit more uh, lighthearted, a little bit perhaps just like Afroman, a little tongue in cheek. But it wasn't. It's to me, at least, it seemed to drag a little bit. And it just seemed to be like, why didn't they fix this? Well, years after I heard the song, and I heard it long after its release, I'm old, but not quite that old. Again, the song came out in 1964. It was recorded on May 21st, 1964. The music industry being what it was then, if you think it's bad now, it's always been bad. It was recorded on May 21st, 1964. On May 20th, Rudy Lewis, who was slated to sing the lead on that song, was found dead in his hotel room. Their manager, not wanting to lose studio time or anything or any money in any way, forced them to go into the studio and record the song with Johnny Moore, who had at one point left the Drifters and then came back singing the lead on that song. I think that's the reason it sounds a little sluggish, because they just didn't have time to recover from the death of Rudy Lewis. That's my theory anyway, and that's why I call it a tragedy, because it was a tragedy that he died so young, and it was a tragedy that they had to go in and record this song immediately after his death with no time to process it or anything like that. So there you have it. That's the triumph of Afroman and the tragedy of the Drifters. Please take just a few seconds to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I will have other features like this coming up in the future. And remember, education doesn't take place just in the classroom, and you can learn from other people's mistakes, and you can also learn from other people's successes. I will analyze it from all angles. That's it for now. See you next time. Bye-bye.